Hello everybody, I'm Nora Burrows. Last week we made these really fun rose quilt blocks and I received a comment asking for more information about how to attach the actual rose to the background, which gave me the perfect opportunity to make more roses, which I was very excited about. So I thought that I would show you a little more detail on that in case you were a little confused. So I made this rose. I have the rose. If you're not sure how to make this rose, go ahead and check that video. I will add the link to the description. But let's go ahead and add the background fabric and the leaves to this flower. The first thing you want to decide is where you want your leaves to be. And I'm going to put my leaves right here, which means I'm going to start working around with the background fabric around this part of the rose. And to help me remember which side my leaves are gonna go on, I'm just gonna put this clip here just so I know this is the side that I wanna avoid for now. I have this kind of purple stripy, almost shimmery fabric for my background, so I think that will be really pretty. So I'm gonna cut a piece of this. What I am gonna be concerned about is making sure that the side of the fabric that I'm gonna attach to the flower is perfectly straight. And to do that, you wanna use your ruler and rotary cutter. So I'm gonna cut off this piece. Now I know I have a perfectly straight line, and I'm gonna attach it to here. So if I want this piece to attach just like this, I need to flip it over, and I have my nice straight side going along here. Now you'll notice that you will lose some of these fabrics on the other side. That's okay. Now we're gonna sew 1/4 inch on the inside of this line. So I'm just making sure to sew 1/4 inch on the inside. And now you do not need your rotary cutter to trim these pieces because it doesn't matter if they're perfectly straight because your sewing line here is perfectly straight and that's what matters. So I'm going to use my scissors to just trim off these background pieces, and then I'm going to iron this open. And here is my first background piece attached. Now I'm going to cut another piece to go right along here. I'm going to try and make it pretty long and pretty wide because I want this to get relatively big. I want to attach this side to here, but I need my nice straight line. So let's cut that. I want this piece to go right along here, which means I'm going to flip it over and sew right along this line 1/4 of an inch inside the line, just like I did with the other piece. Here I've sewed it on, so here's my nice straight line, and then I can use my scissors to cut off the back piece. Then I will fold it over and press. Here I've cut my line. This is my straight line here. I want to attach it right to this side, like this. I'm now going to flip this over, and I will sew the straight line straight across here and open it up. That's looking good. So I'm going to iron this, and then let's focus for a minute on the leaves. I'm not going to go into too much detail on the leaves because I did that in the first video. Let's move the cutting board out of the way, the cutting mat out of the way for a minute so you can see the leaves a little bit better. It's hard to see those against the green. This is where I want to attach the leaves, right here. Just like in the last video, I have these leaves on the diagonal at the top and then straight down and then a diagonal at the bottom. So because there's the diagonal at the bottom, I want them to connect at the diagonal at the bottom, just like that. Then I'll pick one leaf, let's say this one here where my thumb is, and attach this straight side to the petals. First, the first thing I want to do is to be able to connect these two together, which means I'm gonna need background fabric on this side and this side. Then I will make sure there's a straight line and connect those together. Let's do that. So I attached a piece onto each side. This is the straight side. So we have the triangle top, the triangle bottom, and the straight side here. So both of these are on the straight side. I want to, here's the diagonal on this one. I want to follow that diagonal straight up with my ruler and cut. I want to do the same on the other side. Here's the diagonal. I'm going to follow it straight up and cut. That means I now have two straight edges to attach these. So I'll put these right sides together and fold it open. Before I do that, I want to enclose the tops of both leaves. The way that I'm going to do that is enclosing it the same way that we were doing with the rose. I have cut my straight line right here, and this is where I want this one to go. Now you'll notice it's going over my straight line, but that's okay, we'll trim that later. So I'm going to fold it back on itself and sew right there. And when I open it up, I have that, and I can trim my straight line going up again to go right against the straight line of the other side. And then I do have this piece in the back that I need to trim. I can't find my other scissors. We'll use these small scissors. It's like the same when you're wrapping presents. I can never find the tape and the scissors. I always need to cut back up. Okay, so that's this part here. And now I'll need to do the same for this side. I need to attach a piece of fabric right here. This looks like a good one. Let's just attach that right there. That was just a scrap from another piece. I'll cut off this back piece here. Open it up. And you know what? This piece wasn't big enough. I need to add another piece on here. Do you see how if I cut this straight line up like this, I still have this gap up here. So I need to fix that. All right, so I'm just gonna sew this fairly large piece, which is way bigger than I need, onto this piece here. Cut a nice straight line. And that piece can go away. Cut this tip off here. And we can attach this now to our other leaf. So I'm just gonna put these next to each other, flip them over, sew right sides together, like that. And then you'll want to continue to enclose the leaf. That's all I'm going to say about the leaves for now, because you can go back and watch that other video that has more detail. I've enclosed the leaves on all sides except this part that I'm going to attach to the flower. Now I need to make sure I have a straight line going all the way across to attach to the petals. So I'm going to put my ruler right across here and go all the way across. So this is going to be a pretty long line here. And if I take my flower, and I'm not actually going to attach this yet, but this is where it will go. And it looks like I need to maybe enclose this part right here a little bit before I put the leaves on, because otherwise I'm going to have a hole, which we don't want. So I'm going to put this aside for a minute. I'm going to put a piece of fabric here, and then I'm also going to wrap some fabric up along this way, just continuing on the way that I was going. So just like I put the first fabric, the second fabric, the third fabric, I'll keep going up this side, and then we'll put the leaves on. The other thing I want to mention is that even though this is a very small hole, I'm actually going to need a pretty big piece of fabric to cover it, because I need a fat piece of fabric that kind of follows this line, which means it will go all the way from here all the way up here and fold over, kind of like this. So if I want to put a piece there, I'm going to lose a good part of what's already there, which is okay. So even though for the flower itself is great for scrap projects, for the background, you actually need some yardage because of this fact that in wrapping these large pieces around, you're gonna lose some. However, when I cut this piece off the back, this is a relatively large piece that I could use somewhere like over here, for example. I have enclosed my rose, except where I will attach the leaves. And then I've added some pieces to either side of the leaf. I added this piece on the end, and I added this piece on the end over here, just so that I could go all the way across from one side all the way to the other. So what I will do now is, just like before, flip this over and sew right sides together, 1/4 of an inch in, and then trim off the back piece here. So now my flower is completely enclosed, and what I want to do is square this off. You could do a rectangle, you could do a square, but you want to make sure you have your 90-degree angles. So I'm going to go, for each side, I want to go, let's say 3 inches, give it a 3-inch border. So here's my inch 1, 2, 3, right from the edge of that leaf there. And I'll make my first cut. Now I'm going to flip this around, and I'll want to make sure that this I want to make sure that this edge that I just cut is right along one of these yellow lines, lined up nice and straight. Then I'll take my ruler, go 3 inches from the edge of my flower, and cut. Now you'll notice I probably will need to put a piece of fabric up here. Let's see if you can see that. So I will probably need to put a piece of fabric up here, and that's okay, but let's cut our other 2 sides and then we can add fabric where we need to. Turn it. Now I'm gonna line up the edges that I cut up along here and down at the bottom, and cut. Again, for the last side, spin this around, line it up against an edge, and I think I'm going to actually cut this down a bit because then I'll have to add less fabric. So let's cut this down to a 2-inch border. What would that do? That would be better. So that just means that I'll recut the other sides too. These 2 inches, and I'll recut these other sides. So let's take a look at where we need to add some extra fabric. So I have a little nub here that's missing, and so I think what I'm going to do about that, because I don't want to add that teeny tiny piece of fabric on, I'm going to take a tiny bit off of this side, just like 1/8 of an inch. I have another nub up here. So let's just keep cutting this down because I don't want to add like the tiniest pieces of fabric. Great, so then the last thing we need to do is to add a little fabric up here. So I'm going to take this piece, this has already a nice straight edge to it, and actually that won't be enough. I need a bigger piece than that. I just cut this to be a nice straight line. I'm going to put it on a diagonal so that when you fold it over, we can just trim the edges. I just sewed this piece on. Let's cut off the back fabric. Then we can fold this over and trim it. I'm going to give it this piece a little iron and give it a turn. And here's our finished rose. Let's add a border on. I will attach the top and bottom borders first, and I've cut these borders to be a little bit longer than my quilt block. Now you're going to trim just a little part of the borders off right here for a nice clean edge. Same on the other side. And then you'll attach the sides. The way you'll do that is you'll flip it over, so right sides together with your 1/4 inch seam, and then you'll flip it back. So the third quilt block is done. I hope that was helpful with a little more information about how to attach the rose to the background. I think they look really cool as a set, so I'll show them to you in a minute all lined up, and they're really cute, adorable. I love them in the different colors. This is the largest block of the 3, and it's kind of funny because as you're putting the pieces of the flower together, it's really hard to determine how big the flower is going to be or to make it a certain size. So the flower just kind of ends up being whatever size it is, and then you can obviously choose how big you want the background, you know, how much you want to trim of the background off and then put the borders on. So anyway, thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.